Chapter 2, The Root Cause of All Suffering. One who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within him is wise. We live in a world of thought, not reality. Sidney Banks once said, "Thought is not reality, yet it is through thought that our realities are created." Each of us lives through our own perceptions of the world, which are vastly different from the person right next to us. An example of this is that you could be sitting in a coffee shop having a quarter-life existential crisis, completely stressed out of your mind about how you have no idea what you're going to do with your life when it seems like everyone else has theirs together, while the person next to you is happily enjoying their freshly brewed drink while peacefully people watching. You both are in the same exact coffee shop, smelling the same aroma, surrounded by the same strangers, but how the world looks to the both of you couldn't be more different. Many of us go through the exact same events or are in the same location at the same time, yet are having completely different experiences of the world. Here's another example of how we live in a world of thought and not reality. If you walk up to 100 different people and ask each of them what money means to them, how many different answers do you think you'll get? Close to 100 different answers. Money is technically the same thing, but it means something different to each person. Money could mean time, freedom, opportunity, security, peace of mind, or it could mean evil, greed, and the reason why people commit crimes. For now, I'm not going to get into which one is right or wrong. Hint, there is no right or wrong answer, but that's for a different chapter. Another illustration of this concept is as follows. If you survey 100 different people and ask each of them what they think about our current president, how many different answers do you think you'll get? Even though it is the same exact person we're talking about, we will get 100 different answers because most people live in their own thoughts and perceptions of the world. The meaning or thinking we give an event is what determines how we ultimately feel about it. That meaning or thinking is the filter through which we see life from then on. Because of this, we live through a perception of reality, not in reality itself. Reality is that the event happened with no meaning, thinking, or interpretation of it. Any meaning or thinking we give the event is on us, and that is how our perception of reality is created. This is how our experience of life is created from the inside out. It's not about the events that happen in our lives, but our own interpretation of them, which causes us to feel good or bad about something. This is how people in third world countries can be happier than people in first world countries, and people in first world countries can be more miserable than people in the third world countries. Our feelings do not come from external events, but from our own thinking about the events. Therefore, we can only ever feel what we are thinking. Let's hypothetically say that you really hate your job, and it causes you an enormous amount of stress, anxiety, and frustration. It pains you to even set foot in the building where you work, and just thinking about your job makes you furious. When you're thinking about your job, you're just sitting there on the sofa with your family watching TV shows together, but you are fuming at the thought of your job. Everyone else is having a good time except you. In this moment, everyone else in your family is having a different experience of life than you, even though the same event is happening. Just the thought of work created a whole different perception of reality, even though you are not physically at work. If it were true that external events cause us to feel the way we feel inside, then you should be a happy camper in your living room watching a funny TV show with your family every single time you do this activity. But that's not the case. Now, you may be saying that you're only feeling this way because an external event, your job, is causing you to feel stressed and anxious. To that, I'll ask the question, is it absolutely true that every single person feels the exact same way about the job they're working in? Two different people can be doing the exact same job, but will have completely different experiences of that job. It can be the most amazing experience and a dream job for one person, but be another person's worst nightmare and a living hell. The only difference between one person and the other is how they think about their job, which determines how they ultimately feel about it. Now let's go back to the original scenario of you hypothetically hating your job. Remember how much stress, anxiety, and frustration it causes you when you think about it. Let's do a quick thought experiment about that by answering the question below. Who would you be without that thought that you hated your job? Take 1 minute to see what comes up for you, and don't move on until you do that. If you don't overthink it and you truly let answers rise to the surface from within you, without the thought, you will most likely feel and be happy, peaceful, free, and light. Without our usual thinking about a particular event or thing, our experience of it completely alters. This is how we live in a world of thought, not reality, and how our perception of reality is created from the inside out, through our own thinking. With this new understanding, you've just uncovered the cause of all our human psychological suffering. The root cause of our suffering is our own thinking. Now, before you throw this book across the room and light it on fire, I'm not saying that this is all in our heads and that it isn't real. Our perception of reality is very real. We will feel what we think, and our feelings are real. That is completely undeniable. However, our thinking will look like an inevitable, unchangeable reality to us until we begin seeing our reality is created. If we know that we can only ever feel what we're thinking, then we know that we can change our feelings by changing our thinking. Thus, we change our experience of life by knowing that it comes from our own thinking. And if that is true, then we are ever only one thought away from experiencing something different and transforming our entire lives at any moment through a state of no thought. In short, the moment we stop thinking is when our happiness begins. A young monk and an empty boat, a Zen story about how thinking is the cause of our own suffering. A long time ago, a young Zen monk was living in a small monastery that was located in a forest, which was near a small lake. The monastery was occupied by a few senior monks, while the rest were newcomers and still had much to learn. The monks had many obligations in the monastery, but one of the most important ones was their daily routine, where they had to sit down, close their eyes, and meditate in silence for hours at a time. At each meditation, they had to report their progress to their mentor. The young monk had difficulty staying focused during the meditation practice for a variety of reasons, which made him very mad. After the young monk reported his progress, or better said, lack of it, to his mentor, the elder monk asked the young monk a simple question that had a hidden lesson. Do you know what is really making you angry? The young monk replied, well, usually as soon as I close my eyes and begin to meditate, there is someone moving around and I can't focus. I get agitated that someone is disturbing me even though they know that I'm meditating. How can they not be more considerate? And then when I close my eyes again and try to focus, a cat or a small animal might brush past me and disturb me again. By this point, even when the wind blows and the tree branches make noise, I get angry. If that's not enough, the birds keep on chirping, and I can't seem to find any peace in this place. The elder monk simply pointed out to his pupil, I see that you become angrier with each interruption you encounter. This is actually the opposite of what is the point of your task when meditating. You should find a way not to get angry with people or animals or any other thing around you that disturbs you during your task. After their consultation, the young monk went out to the monastery and looked around to find a place that would be quieter so that he could meditate peacefully. He found such a place at the shore of the lake that is nearby. He brought his mat, sat down, and started meditating. But soon a flock of birds splashed down in the lake near where the monk was meditating. Hearing their noise, the monk opened his eyes to see what was going on. Although the bank of the lake was quieter than the monastery, there were still things that would disturb his peace, and he again got angry. Even though he didn't find the peace he was looking for, he kept returning to the lake. Then one day, the monk saw a boat tied at the end of the pier, and right then the idea hit him. Why don't I take the boat, row it down to the middle of the lake, and meditate there? In the middle of the lake, there would be nothing to disturb me. He rowed the boat to the middle of the lake and started meditating. And as he expected, there was nothing in the middle of the lake to disturb him, and he was able to meditate the whole day. At the end of the day, he returned to the monastery. This continued for a couple of days, and the monk was thrilled that he had finally found a place to meditate in peace. He hadn't felt angry and could continue the meditation practice in a calm manner. On the third day, the monk sat in the boat, rowed to the middle of the lake, and started meditating again. A few moments later, he heard some splashing in the water and felt the boat was rocking. He started getting upset that even in the middle of the lake, there was someone or something disturbing him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a boat heading straight towards him. He shouted, "Steer your boat away, or else you will hit my boat." But the other boat kept coming straight at him and was just a few feet away. He yelled again, but nothing changed, and so the incoming boat hit the monk's boat. Now he was furious. He screamed, "Who are you, and why have you hit my boat in the middle of this vast lake?" There was no answer. This made the young monk angrier. He stood up to see who was in the other boat, and to his surprise, he found that there was no one in the boat. The boat had probably drifted along in the breeze and had bumped into the monk's boat. The monk found his anger dissipating. It was just an empty boat. There was no one to even get angry at. At that moment, he remembered his mentor's question, "Do you know what is really making you angry?" And then wondered, it's not other people, situations, or circumstances. It's not the empty boat, but my reaction to it that causes my anger. All the people or situations that make me upset and angry are just like the empty boat. They don't have the power to make me angry without my own reaction. The monk then rowed the boat back to the shore. He returned to the monastery and started meditating along with the other monks. There were still noises and disturbances around, but the monk treated them as the empty boat and continued to meditate peacefully. When the elder monk saw the difference, he simply said to the young monk, "I see that you have found what is really making you angry and overcome that." I remember like the beginning of my journey with universal truth and coming out of religion, seeking something deeper. I remember bumping into Esther Hicks, and I remember her being the first to say it. I remember Neville Goddard saying it. I remember like almost every teacher that I ever sat with and learned from saying it, and I remember wrestling against it every time. Just like Joseph NYUGEN has presented here, I would not be suffering if I didn't create my own suffering through my interpretations, identifications, attachments, and my misalignment with truth by defining it as something other than it is. We'll get a text message, and if it's from the right person, it's no longer just a text message. This could be life-changing, and my heart stops, and I'm holding my breath in anticipation of what this person could be possibly finna say to me unexpectedly. And am I really afraid of a text message? Am I really worried or concerned about the words, the 200 characters that could fit in the box that are about to come to me or have came and I'm about to analyze? Or am I concerned that there could possibly be something within this text message that interferes with my definitions and attachments? And coming from the right person, or should I say the wrong person, interference with our definitions and attachments could be psychologically and emotionally fatal. Simplest way that we can put it so that we can retain it and rehearse it until it becomes a truth that is applicable in our lives unconsciously is you're not affected by what happens. You're affected by what you call it. Think about it. Get an example in front of yourself of someone who is the most vile example of a human being that you could think about. Let's say a child molester. When a child molester transitions to the molested, this is a gift. To the child molester's mother, this could possibly be saddening. So here we can see we're talking about the same person, but there are two different definitions given by two different entities that the person came in contact with. So one person celebrates his demise, the other person grieves. And the reality of it is the natural occurrence of a physical container has expired and a being that is eternal has transitioned from one form to another, regardless of whether you perceive him or her as good or bad. Somebody robs your house, takes all your belongings, they land in prison. That's to be celebrated for some. Your brother or your sister robs somebody's house and she gets or he gets convicted and sent to prison for 10 years and is free to homies. See, we practice lying for so long that telling the truth is now a task that takes our conscious effort. Being deceitful, being manipulative, bending the truth, lying is effortless. It's something that we actually do sometimes from habit and form without even being aware that we're doing it until we're done. Not only have we built illusions, now the illusions have built the false sense of self that we identify ourselves with. So to break the illusion or destroy the illusion or to discredit the illusion now feels like I'm losing a sense of myself. I love the example of the man or woman who hates their job and comes home and tries to enjoy their family and watch TV and interact normally, because we're always doing things that come with secondary consequences because of the iron rod of universal law, as if we are the exception or we are the exemption. I understand that it has consequences for everybody else. I understand nobody else could pull off the double-minded thing. I understand that nobody else has been able to toggle between two worlds, going back and forth between illusions and truth, and maintain a dedication and commitment to truth. I myself rehearse and recite the scripture that no one can serve two masters. I say I know this, but then there's that part of me that thinks that I can be the first one. And I never admit it because to admit it sounds stupid. So I conduct myself in such a way where I'm constantly convincing myself that I'm hiding my stupidity from others, but I'm continuing in it just in case it does pay off one day. But the irony is, we're not worried about it paying off. We know the end result. We know where it's going, and that's why we're committed to it. We have a dedication and commitment to sadness. We have a dedication and commitment to dysfunction. We actually call and crave for anything that's familiar, and we know nothing of peace, but we do know war. We do know chaos. We've never seen unconditional love extended to us on this earth, yet we believe that we are the only ones capable of extending it ourselves as we judge and critique how others give us conditions and give us criterias to meet and hurdles to jump. What you're looking at is not an opposite expression of what you are giving. You are looking at a direct reflection, a direct mirror of your own behavior. You probably have learned not to speak on the conditions that you set. You probably have learned to be silent about your expectations because you know that they're not fair. And you know that there are probably not very many people who are going to tolerate that long list of things that they must do in order to stay on your good side. Or are we going to pretend like you don't have a bad side? Are we going to pretend like there's not a part of you that isn't specially reserved for the people who refuse to play your game, refuse to jump through your hoops, refuse to meet your requirements and prerequisites before they are extended the beauty and bounty that's inside of you? Let's not pretend like the silent game isn't the first weapon we grab when somebody has done something that we disapprove of. Let's not pretend like we don't see ourselves as so important and such an enjoyment that we remove our voice from the people we say we love when they have done something from the free will that is within them that does not serve our narratives, definitions, and attachments. But then you'll turn around and say that you're always putting other people first. You'll turn around and say that you're insecure. You'll turn around and say that you struggle with your self-image. You'll turn around and say that you have confidence issues. You don't have confidence issues at all. You don't have a self-image issue. You are so obsessed with yourself that when somebody rejects you, it is so far-fetched to you that they are rejecting you based on factual findings and strong analytics of your character, your habits, your mental state, and your awareness of the truth of yourself. Because I know I'm a good person. I know I'm constantly hurting people. I know I'm never really nice and pleasant. But deep down under all of this mess that has become who I am because of something that happened in the past that I labeled life-altering for me, and I use now as an excuse to not apply the effort to being productive and being loving and being edifying amongst the people around me. But that's not who I am. This is so common. So common. But listen to what I'm about to say, because it's a double-edged sword, because that's what the truth is. For those who have been sitting under this presentation and being given this presentation by others and been calling this a lie and an excuse for poor behavior and the mismanagement of emotions, it's deeper than that, because there is a level of truth to what is being presented inside of this delusional state. Inside of a person's words, you can hear the truth of, I am the cause of my own suffering and I don't know it. I sat amongst the chatter of the legion of voices of my ego and listened to them define what happened to me and what it now means for me. And I've sat and repeated that so long that I now identify with it. I now interpret all information and now interpret all encounters with all people through this new identification with a single solitary event. Let's not act like we're not cognizant of the fact that we're constantly labeling things what they are not. And that's why we're so unorganized in our day-to-day living, because when we go to find things, they have labels on it that indicate that it's one thing when it's really another. Don't act like you didn't describe the day that someone's son or daughter broke up with you was the day that someone broke your heart. Don't act like the day that you lost your job didn't ultimately become the day that your life was under attack financially and the day that you lost it all and you had to shake back from nothing. You wrote that definition. You decided within yourself based on your perception of reality what that occurrence was and whether it was good or bad and how it would affect you moving forward was all in imagination until you partnered with it and gave it your life force and your assumptions hardened into fact. Just like always, you're going to always get what you want. You've always gotten exactly what you asked for, even if you didn't directly open your mouth and ask for it. If you gave attention to it in your imagination long enough, you had an experience where you perceived that what you imagined was true. There was never a monster in the closet, but before you grew the nerves and the bravery to discover that for yourself, and before it came a fact, there used to be sounds and noises, and there used to be shadows and images in your perception that caused it to appear as if monsters were real. You never stopped looking for monsters. You encounter new people, and you still are trying to see if there's a monster in the closet. That person is an extension of yourself. That person is an eternal being just like you. That person is inside of a physical experience by choice with a purpose, filled with abundance, probably lacking the awareness of it just like you. There are no monsters. The monster is the lack of awareness of the truth of yourself. So what you're looking for to possibly harm you and other people could only harm you from the inside. Your lack of knowledge of the true self and the true power of yourself causes you to miss the experience of the present moment where you encounter extensions of yourself to learn and to edify and to extend love that is within you, and you convert that into another fearful night wrapped under the covers, staring at the closet, looking for monsters. Suspicious. And your suspicions cause your perception to feed you interpretations that you identify with previously, and you've repeated until they have become things that you hold strong emotions about and fueled your core beliefs. Whatever is in you is going to come out. If there are illusions within you, you will live with illusions around you. If my brain has not been dethroned and the eternal mind that was gifted to all has not been embraced as the universal tool that drives my success, then there's no way that I'm aligned with reality. There's no way that what I see is based on truth and facts. What I see is fed to me by perception, and perception follows the path of expectation. You've always only saw what you wanted to see. And that's why you've maintained your blindness. It is your dedication to seeing your blind spots and embracing these moments without guilt and without shame that will allow for you to live beyond the darkness. Like, yeah.